Welcome! Today we're going to be discussing the vaccine. It is out, it has been administered worldwide for a few weeks now. The crazy thing is, 10 months ago the vaccine didn't exist in anybody's mind. Today it is being administered, it is a reality, and we're being told that it is safe and there are no serious long-term side effects. But has there been really enough time to know that? And why should we trust people like Fauci or Pelosi who are either willfully ignorant or they were lying us to the point that they had to confess to their sins? Should we trust them? Never! Our Saint, Lord, and Savior, Dr. Anthony Fauci, has been caught either flip-flopping hard on issues like opening up schools or straight up lying on issues like wearing masks or vaccinations. During the summer, he was saying schools should only reopen if they took certain draconian measures, and he was also warning parents of the risk of sending kids back to school. Today, he says of course schools should open because kids barely transmit the disease, and when they get it, it barely affects them. Take a look.
Close the bars and keep the schools open is what we really say. Obviously, you don't have one size fits all, but as I said in the past, and as you accurately quoted me, the default position should be to try as best as possible within reason to keep the children in school or to get them back to school. If you look at the data, the spread among children and from children is not really very big at all, not like one would have suspected.
Oh, I've always said you should keep the schools open, says the man in charge of America's coronavirus response to a nation whose schools have been closed for months. Right, yeah, I always said that. Check the tape.
Why did you just decide to look at the data, Mr. Fauci? Why not look at the data like all the other countries are doing whose schools have been open for months? I remember what Pelosi said? Take a look at that.
No, I think what we heard from the secretary was malfeasance and dereliction of duty. This is appalling. They're messing. The president and his administration are messing with the health of our children. Going back to school presents the biggest risk for the spread of the coronavirus.
If that's not criminal, what she just said, we may need to redefine what it means to commit a crime. 60 million school-aged children affected by a decision that was wrong, and many of them hurt for life.
And of course, we all remember his lie on masks.
What about a month or so, or 2 or 3 ago, when people were saying, you don't really need to wear a mask? Well, the reason for that is that we were concerned, the public health community, and many people were saying this, were concerned that it was at a time when personal protective equipment, including the N95 masks and the surgical masks, were in very short supply. And we wanted to make sure that the people, namely the healthcare workers, who were brave enough to put themselves in harm's way to take care of people who were infected with the coronavirus and the danger of them getting infected, we did not want them to be without the equipment that they needed.
It is
just
hard.
On live television.
Yeah,
it's insane.
Hard to overstate how outrageous it is that he's just like, because he says, oh, people were saying, no. The Surgeon General and the U.S. government were saying, don't wear a mask, not because we need these critical supplies for our frontline healthcare workers, which would have been that. Like, yes, tell us that. People would have listened. No, there was a whole elaborate rationales and many articles written about how masks didn't really work, so don't buy masks, don't wear masks. In fact, they may make things worse, but also, oh, by the way, our healthcare professionals are definitely going to be wearing them, which never made sense. You're like, if they don't work, then why does it matter for them to have them? It never made sense. And then it comes out, he just admits they were blatantly lying to us.
They lied to us.
Lying Dr. Fauci. How dare he?
How dare you?
And now, the wonderful and honest Dr. Fauci had to make another confession, this time regarding vaccines, because it turns out he's been lying about the amount needed to reach herd immunity. Let's read. From Axios, New York Times, Fauci acknowledges moving goalposts on herd immunity from COVID-19. Dr. Anthony Fauci has long cited 60 to 70% as the level of COVID infection vaccination the country would need to achieve herd immunity for the disease to fade and life to return to normal, writes the communist New York Times. About a month ago, he began saying 70 to 75% in television interviews, and last week in a CNBC interview, he said 75, 80, 85%, and 75 to 80+%. In a telephone interview, Fauci acknowledged that he had slowly but deliberately been moving the goalposts. He's doing so, he said, partly based on new science and partly on his gut feeling that the country is finally ready to hear what he really thinks. Are we ready to hear what St. Fauci has to say? I don't know if we're worth it yet. Maybe in a couple months. Fauci's confession. When polls said only about half of all Americans would take a vaccine, I was saying herd immunity would take 70 to 75%. Then, when your survey said that 60% would take the vaccine, I thought, I can nudge this up a bit, so I went to 80, 85. We need to have some humility here. We really don't know what the real number is. I think the real range is somewhere between 70 to 90, but I'm not going to say 90%. Fauci is the liar. Fauci is the liar. He got caught again. And now, since we're on the vaccine, it brings me to the next story. Nurse tests positive for COVID-19 despite recent vaccine. The scenario isn't unexpected. How it could have happened. This whole long story goes on to say that immunity could take 10 to 14 days to build up after the shot, so she probably got infected before and so on. End the story. I'm okay with that. But here's one that I'm not okay with. The CDC is recommending pregnant women take the vaccine even though they acknowledge that no studies have been done on the possible effects it could have on the fetus. Let me read you the actual tweet from the CDC. Pregnant? You may discuss your hashtag COVID-19 vaccines with your doctor, but it's not required before vaccination. Have you ever heard them say that before? You don't need to discuss something with your doctor? I mean, you could discuss it, but it's not required. Not before vaccination. Do it after. While studies have not yet been done, experts believe that mRNA vaccines like COVID-19 vaccines are unlikely to pose a risk for hashtag pregnant people. It's unlikely. Do you want to take that risk? If I was a pregnant woman, I think I'd wait for some studies. And this brings us to our last story. Is the COVID vaccine going to make men sterile? Probably not, but I think it's worth studying. And the University of Miami agrees with me. An article from Local 10 News Miami ends like this. Quote, to protect fertility, some men may want to consider freezing their sperm prior to vaccination. Unquote. So yeah, I think I'm going to wait. I don't want to be put in the position where I have to sue Pfizer in 10 years for $1 billion because I can't have kids. Wait, I can't sue them. They have liability protection. Very nice. And last, I'm very thankful to be living in Florida, where Governor Ron DeSantis, along with the governor of Texas, have decided to ignore the CDC recommendations on how to distribute the vaccine. And I'm not talking about the recommendations how to do it by race. I'm talking about the ones when they said give it to the medical workers, give it to the frontline workers, give it to the essential workers before the old people. That makes no sense. So thankfully, Governor Ron DeSantis ignored it and is giving it to the old people first, as it should be. Good. Thank you, sir. Thank you for watching the video. If you liked it, please like the video. Hit the like button. Subscribe. It's free. Share it. That's free too. Thank you for watching. Happy New Year. See you next time.